junior high coach or as a high school coach or even a college coach, one of the most important factors that I think everyone needs to have is to actually have some type of plan. And when we're looking at assessing athletes and when we're looking at building a plan, the biggest factor is what can go into that plan that then leads to laying out the entire season. So when we're a throws coach, we have to be able to go into practice, to go into the actual season and know and stay strong and say, hey, I know what on day one we're going to be doing. I know what we're going to be doing with throws. I know what we're going to be doing with medicine ball things. What we're going to be doing with jumps, what we're going to be doing with possibly sprints or abs, and then what technique things we're going to be looking for. So all of those things factor into how we're going to be building out an entire plan for the entire season. And if we're thinking about the perfect throws season, those are all aspects that are going to be incorporated inside of that plan. So when we're looking at this, we have to start with that first key factor. Every single coach, junior high coaches, high school coaches, college coaches, professional coaches, this is something that I wish I would have done when I first got into throws coaching at an early age. I wish I would have done a better job of this specific task. And that is going to be doing consistent assessments, okay? And a lot of you might be sitting there going, well, I'm a junior high school coach. What does that even mean? Okay, what does that mean if I have 15 kids come to me and they've never done anything? Okay, if I have 20 kids standing in line and they've never done a throw. I think it's important that we can compartmentalize each and every thrower into specific groups based off of specific capabilities. Okay, so I like to set up assessments in the light of what is their physical attributes. Okay, if we have an athlete who's, let's say, stronger, more explosive, taller, more coordinated, right? We can sort of lump these kids into one specific group and say, okay, this is the the pivotal person that's going to be in this group where they're more athletic. They can be more coordinated. They can take instructions. They can implement this immediately into their movement pattern. Okay. Then we might have another group of athletes where it's, they're pretty coordinated. Let's say we're at the junior high level, right? And we're saying, these kids have never thrown. They're not falling all over themselves, but they're still relatively coordinated. They're not as athletic as those top-notch kids, but they're going to contribute quite a bit. And it's someone who we can develop over a long period of time. That might be that second group of individuals, okay? And then the third group of individuals might be students that are coming out that have never really trained before. They've never really done anything physical. They're just learning how to, possibly walk and chew gum at the same time. They're the athletes that might struggle with specific cues, might struggle with specific physical tasks early on. Okay, so we can set those groups up into three specific athletes or three specific types of athletes. But it all goes back to having some type of an assessment. And this goes from junior high all the way up to that professional level. And we can start off with some simple assessments at the lower level, might be doing something like, how does this person do skips? How well does this person do box jumps? How well does this individual take a standing throw? How well does this individual do a spin after we teach them a specific technical pattern? Within 5 minutes of doing instruction with the spin, how well can they actually spin? How well can this person do a bound? How well can they do a push-up? And then at the professional level, as we would go up, let's say we're dealing with a college or a professional thrower, we have to sit there and say, how well can this person throw a heavy implement versus a light implement versus a competitive movement? How well does this person do a snatch or a clean or a squat, a bench press? And we can then take that information and use that further down the line. Ultimately, when we're thinking about building out a throws program, a throws season of training, it all starts with assessments. And I think that that's the biggest lesson for everyone out there, for all throws coaches, is that when you start and you look at what you're going to be doing in practice, it has to go back to the assessment. When we do those assessments, when we analyze movement patterns, when we analyze how the individual handles cues, when we analyze how the individual's interacting with their friends and their teammates, when we analyze how the individual takes a cue from us, mentally, how do they compartmentalize that cue? How do they take that and think through it? what does that mean for that individual? And then we can lump those into groups, because then what that ends up doing for us as a coach is we can have 3 specific groups of athletes, but it also familiarizes ourselves as coaches with each type of thrower. And then we can even look at it and say, okay, this is their weakness, this is their strength, this is how we can build upon where they're at throughout the entire season. And if we're not doing the assessments, the big factor comes back to we don't know where to start. We don't know what their weaknesses are. We don't know what their strengths are. And then ultimately, we're sort of just shooting in the dark. And that's one thing I'll bring up, is that when we're looking at developing athletes like Sam Mattis, Alex Rose, to get to the Olympics, to become an Olympic finalist, some of the most important things that I do in the off season is look at where is their bench relative to their snatch, relative to their squat, relative to their clean. All of these things come into factor. And then where is their heavy implement versus their competitive versus their light implement, and where there's some technical low-hanging fruit that we can pull from to try and chip away and increase their overarching PR. Okay, that's how we like to think about things, all the way at the very top, going to the Olympics, trying to become a top 10 thrower of all time. That's what we're doing. But we're doing the same exact thing when we have somebody who comes in that's 11 or 12 years old. It starts with those assessments. And when we're training large groups of athletes, when we're training inexperienced athletes, it becomes even more important. It's not as advanced in the sense of the movement pattern, but it's advanced in the sense of we need to be aware of how they're even handling a warm-up. We need to be aware of how they're squatting in their warm-up. We need to be aware of how they're doing skips. Maybe they're doing a jump rope. Maybe they're doing a single leg jump rope. Maybe they're skipping backwards. Okay. How do they handle that? How do they apply it themselves? Use that. Try to get these individuals into different groups, and that's going to help you develop that system throughout the entire year. So the first part of this series is going to be about the assessments, as we just went over. The next part is we're going into some deep layered planning as a coach and what you can do with your athletes. If this is something that you're interested in, we have a program that's known as the Perfect Throws Season. It's a 12-week plan, a 12-week guideline that's going to help you in your coaching as a high school coach, as an NCAA coach, as a D3 NAIA coach who's looking for that guide to get your athletes to the next season. All you have to do is click on the link down below in the description, head over to throwsuniversity.com, and you can pick up the Perfect Throws Season today. Until next time, peace.